Bourbon, whiskey, Scotch, what is the difference? Welcome to my channel. My name is Brenner. This is Mr. Liquor Sipper, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So whiskey, bourbon, Scotch, they're all the same, right? Not exactly. Let's go ahead, let's jump into each of these bottles and take a closer look. Now, what makes whiskey? Well, whiskey. Whiskey is any distilled alcoholic beverage made from fermented grain mash that's aged in wooden casks. The mash can be made from a variety of grains including barley, rye, and you can't forget corn or wheat. Now, all the information being said, it kind of leaves a lot of room up for interpretation. Kind of like that one time at band camp. At one time at band camp? I need to tune this thing. Now think of whiskey as a catch-all, if you will, catch-all name. It's kind of like for wine. So like for wine you have your Cabernet Sauvignon, and then it's very different from Chardonnay, worlds apart even, but still very similar, but still both considered wine. So all Scotch is whiskey, but not all whiskey is Scotch, and all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. I'm sure a bunch of people have heard that before, but just reiterating for the newbies that are out there. Okay, so since both Scotch and bourbon are technically both considered whiskeys, let's go ahead and let's take a deep dive and get a little bit closer to the Titanic and do a compare and contrast. Now, the country of origin for one. Even though Scotch and bourbon are both whiskeys, they are actually separated by a very large ocean. And that ocean is a very significant difference between the two. Now see, according to the Scotch Whisky Act of 1988, wait, I wanted to make things clear here. So if it's coming from Europe, from my understanding, if it's coming especially from Scotland, it is going to be spelled W-H-I-S-K-Y without the E. However, whiskey in America is spelled with the E. So if you're trying to understand why are they both spelled different, they're spelled different because they come from different places. Now, Scotch must be matured in oak casks for up to 3 years or more in Scotland. Bourbon is governed by similar rules laid out by the federal standards of identity for distilled spirits, which sounds really fancy and very kosher, but in real life it's just really just a normal weird way of saying rules that ensure bourbon can maintain that distinct taste that we all know and all love. It's America's native spirit after all. America! Fuck yeah! Now, one of the rules of engagement is that in order for it to actually earn that bourbon label, your whiskey, that's with an E, must be made in the United States of America. Now, there are some requirements as far as alcohol by volume is considered. So let's take a look back at the good old Scotch Whisky Act. According to the Act standards, a whiskey must be distilled at an alcoholic strength by volume of less than 94.8% to be considered an actual Scotch, and also have a minimum, that's right, a minimum alcoholic strength of volume of 40%. Now, on the other side of the world, that's right, stateside, you've got to make sure that your bourbon doesn't enter the barrel at anything higher than 125 proof and can't be bottled at anything less than an 80 proof. Well, for both Scotch and bourbon, turns out it's really not a whole lot different. If you're looking to nab the official Scotch label, the Scotch Whisky Act says that your spirit must be noticeably absent of any added substance that are not water or plain caramel coloring. Now, America likes to step it up a notch, and for us, there is nothing on God's green earth else that can be put in or touch the bottle of bourbon with bourbon inside of the bottle of bourbon, because then it would not be considered a bourbon anymore. It would be considered diluted. So the moral of the story is, just because they're related doesn't make them exactly the same. So they're a little bit different now. Now, don't get confused. That doesn't mean go out there and try to, you know, get it on with your kissing cousin or hang out with your sister a little too long, if you know what I mean. It just means they're different enough, but they're still in the same family. So there's rules for that. There's rules for that. All right, guys, that's all I got for y'all today. I appreciate you guys jumping in the glass with me, sipping on some information. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your homies, leave a comment, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everyone in between about Mr. Liquor Sipper, because we right here are taking over the world of whiskey and the land of the underground so we can come up, flourish, and be well known on the microphone. Anyway, guys, appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Now you understand everything that is under the whiskey umbrella, Ella. And until next time, cheers and keep on sipping.